Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you this Baby Glitz by King Cole. Now this is a really soft baby yarn, but it has like a lurex thread through it, but it's not scratchy at all. Now you could really put this right next to your baby's skin and it's not going to irritate or itch at all. It's a beautiful, beautiful glitz in the yarn. It's got a perfect name for it. Now this one is pink. The number is 103 and you can get this on Lovecrafts. Well, this is a beautiful stitch. This stitch is absolutely beautiful. Now when you do this little pattern, you get these lovely even little bumps down the side. You're left with the same little pattern on the top, these little shells almost. It's really easy, so you don't need a border at all. You get a nice straight edge on the bottom as well. It's beautiful, it really is. And I'm going to say this is a beautiful stitch to make a baby blanket, especially if it's for a newborn baby. I'm going to show you how to do this really delicate but pretty pattern, and it does crochet up really quick because you're working in to the little chains. There's two little chains in here, so you're just jumping from here over to here, over to here, over to here. So it's quite a quick stitch as well, but my goodness, look how pretty this is. Beautiful. You need to try this. So for the sample of this blanket, I'm going to use this James Seabury marble yarn just to show you what it'll look like in sort of variegated yarn as well. And I'm still going to use my 5.5, my 5.5mm crochet hook. Now these hooks are from Knit Pro. This one is called a Knit Pro Zing. I really like it. It's not too long and sticking out the end of your hand. So in the stitch books that I've used quite a lot of stitch books to get ideas to make blankets. And this stitch was called the Paris stitch. It's called the Paris stitch in one of the books that I had. But then in another book, it was called the tulip stitch. So it's just depending on what book or magazine or whatever you're looking at to what whoever is doing that stitch calls it. So with this stitch, you need sets of 3 stitches. Sets of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to do a chain. And this yarn's a little bit thicker than the pink one that I was using. I just want to show you the comparison of using different yarns, and please experiment when you do different patterns. Just experiment with different size hooks. So I'm going to go in, I've done my chain in sets of 3. So I'm going to go into the 4th stitch in my chain. Don't count the loop. 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm going to do a UK treble crochet. So we're going to do a treble crochet into the 4th stitch in the chain. Now that chain there becomes your 1st stitch and that's your 2nd one. Now you're going to chain 2. 1, 2, and into that same stitch you're going to do a UK double crochet. So into that same stitch you're going to do 1 double crochet into that same stitch, and it makes this little cluster. You're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2. Now into the next stitch, 2 treble crochets, 2 chain, and 1 double crochet, all into the same stitch. So yarn over and do your first treble crochet, that's 1, yarn over and your second treble crochet. So I've done 2 treble crochets into that same stitch. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then into the same stitch do a double crochet. Skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we're going to repeat that cluster again into the next stitch. So skip 2, then you're going to do 2 treble crochets, so that's 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same stitch do 1 double crochet. Skip 2 and then do that cluster again. 2 treble crochet, 2 chain, remember the 2 chain, you need that 2 chain on your next row, and 1 double crochet, all into the same stitch. And it makes these pretty little clusters like this. I'll get my pink one back. So this is what it does. It makes these lovely little clusters. Now your repeat row, you're going to be using the 2 chain, and you're doing that same cluster into each of the chain spaces, and that's it. It's only a 1 row repeat, this blanket. That's what makes it so lovely. It's just a great stitch to do. So skip 2 and then do your cluster into the next stitch. You'll do that all the way to the end. So chain 2 and double crochet. Skip 2 and do my cluster. That's 2 trebles, 1 and 2 into that same stitch. Chain 2, 1, 2, and then a double crochet. Now I'm going to do that all the way to the end, and you'll do a cluster in your last stitch. So you should have 1 stitch left at the end and do your last cluster in there. So once I get to there, I'll come back and show you what to do next. So I've got 3 stitches left, so I'm going to skip 2, and into that last stitch I'm going to do my little cluster. So that's 2 trebles, 1 and 2, 2 chain, 1, 2. You've got to remember those chains, and 1 double crochet into that same stitch. Now you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn your work around. Now that makes your first treble of your cluster. Now into the chain space, you've got your little clusters and you've got your little chain spaces. This is where you're going to work from now on. You're going to work into all these chain spaces. Then you'll jump over to this one, and into that 2 chain space, you'll do that cluster, that same cluster, and move over to the next one. That's what makes this stitch really quick as well. So that counts as your first treble crochet. So into this chain space, we're going to do 1 more treble crochet. So that one and that one makes 2. Chain 2, 1, 2, and do a double crochet into that chain space. So that's your cluster made. You're going over to your next cluster, and into the chain space you'll do your 2 treble crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2. Now into the same space do your double crochet, 1 double crochet. If you're in the USA, that's a single crochet. So jump over to the next cluster and into the chain space, and that's what you do all the way to the end. You'll do your last cluster, chain 3 and turn, and then just repeat that row. So into my chain space, I'm going over to the next set and do my cluster. 2 treble crochets, 2 chain and 1 double crochet, all into the same space. Then move over to the next one. 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and a double crochet. Remember the double crochet locks it in. Now what else is, don't worry if it starts to fan out a little bit. As your blanket grows, your bottom here will straighten out. For the time being, it will look a little like a fan, but as it grows, like this one, I'm still working on this little one. This is a little cuddle blanket. And as you can see, as it grows, the bottom is nice and straight. And these little peaks run up the side. So there's no need for a border. And there's no need to finish the top. When you've done as many rows as you want, you'll just cut your yarn and sew in the tail end of it. And this is beautiful yarn, and it's a beautiful stitch. Look at that, it's beautiful. Now if you use a much bigger hook, you'll get a much more open pattern, and it will be really lacy for the summer, nice and light. If you want it a bit more dense, then use a 4.5mm crochet hook. Use a smaller hook and it will be kind of more in like that, and it will be a denser stitch, and it will be a little bit thicker if you're somewhere where it is actual winter just now. So back to my sample. I'm going to work my way to my end, putting my clusters in the chain spaces. So I'm at my last cluster, and in the chain space, just find your little chain space. That's why you've got to remember and do your 2 chain. We're going to do our little cluster. So that's 1 treble crochet, 2 treble crochet, 2 chain, 1, 2, and 1 double crochet in there to lock that in. Now chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That becomes your first treble crochet of your next cluster. So turn your work. So that's your first treble crochet. So into the chain space here, you're going to do 1 more treble crochet. Chain 2, 1, 2, and do 1 double crochet into that chain space. And that is what you'll do for this blanket. Now this is thicker yarn and it's really pretty. I'll do a few more rows and show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. And look at this. Even though the other one, the pink one, is a double knitting, I think this feels a little bit thicker. It's a little bit on the thicker side. And look at that. So if you're doing them for adults, this is still a beautiful stitch. It's nice and compact when you use a thicker yarn like this. And the one thing, keep persevering. If your blanket goes like this at the top, it will straighten out as you work up like this one is. I'll show you my pink one again. And look at this. This little one is absolutely beautiful. Even though it's a double knitting yarn, it's slightly thinner. It's slightly thinner than that James C. Brett marble. And look at that, with the same size of hook. It is so pretty in any yarn that you use. And for babies, if you have a new grandchild on the way, if you do this in a beautiful snow white yarn, it would be an absolutely beautiful, beautiful baby gift for a brand new baby. And like I've said already, you don't need a border on it, because it gives you this nice little ruffled edge, and you get the same at the top. Now when you finished your blanket and you've got it as big as you want it, I went and pulled my stitch out there. I'll finish this. That's chain 2 and a 1 double crochet. So when you finish your row, all you'll do is just cut your yarn cut it there and pull the loop through that stitch and stitch in your end. That's how you finish it off. I think it's beautiful. So please, if you haven't subscribed already, then please subscribe to my channel. And if you click on the bell icon, then YouTube will tell you when I put up another tutorial. So please give this one a try. It is just a little cluster. It works up fast because you're just going in to that chain 2 stitch and move across to the next one, and then over and over and over. So it's a 1 row repeat, just that little cluster, and it works up really quickly. So until the next time, happy crafting, and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.